Nigerian story.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak and Trust Television, reaching you from the nation's capital in Abuja. Going into our next discussion on the program, there are indications that the conversations regarding the campaigns so far focused on candidates' personality and competence disparagement at the expense of major issues. Now, the Center for Research and Development of African Media and Society and Positive Agenda Nigeria said that the last 8 weeks have been a mix of both positive and negative outcomes, as the campaign landscape is dominated by issues that do not focus on the issues of national importance. The APC and the PDP may be guilty of these accusations. We have in the studio Ali M. Ali, who is the Deputy Director, Media and Publicity, APC Presidential Campaign Council, with us in the studio to talk about the APC politics and the campaigns so far. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you for having me, Ayuba. Thank you for being here once again.
You're welcome. Let me start by asking, how are the campaigns going so far from where you stand?
Well, they're going very well. Well, not that well, because there will be hitches and then there will be tweaking every now and again. There are issues of logistics. So every now and again, they are being tweaked so that to accommodate new realities and to also get extra mileage from the campaign process itself. So it's not one smooth sail. There are hiccups, there are glitches, but us said and done, I say on average, yeah, it's fairly okay. You anticipate that it's not going to be smooth sail. There are things that occasionally they are beyond your control. When you plan, sometimes the plan doesn't work as, it's not like a charm that works like magic. You are dealing with people, you are dealing with logistics, you are dealing with issues. You're talking of the presidential campaign of the front runner. You're talking of the large logistics involved. So, but all said and done, from crowd mobilization, from the content of our campaign manifesto, you say yes.
All right. While we hope to have a chieftain of the PDP, Umar Sani, join us eventually on the show as we progress, let's talk a bit about the APC, as a party. It seems like all is not well from what we are seeing, going by some statements by the presidential candidate of your party. It's given a feeling as though there is no, the president, who is the leader of the party, and the candidate of your party are not really having a good time, really, as regards support, for the candidate. So, for instance, we've heard the APC candidate talks about the use of the Naira redesign and the scarcity of fuel to, sabotage the campaigns for the APC. And also, just recently, we also heard about the dollar, the exchange rate, where he says, well, the dollar couldn't be tamed from 200, is now about 800, and the rest of them. And it all happens under the APC government. So people will be saying, why should the APC candidate be saying things like that? And let me just add that on today's paper for the Daily Trust, that is, there's a column here that says it's titled Beyond the Surface with Gimba Kakanda, where he says, he titles it Tinubu's Coldest War. Now, a quote from that, let me read that. He says, President Buhari had 7 years to authorize the redesign of the Naira notes, but instead chose to do so during an election period despite the potential consequences of inciting public anger towards his government. This calculated decision is seen by some as an attempt to undermine not only the general voting public, but also the presidential candidate of his own party. So it seems that there's some kind of legitimacy to this argument.
Well, when you take a decision as crucial as redesigning a nation's currency in an election year, you open yourself to all kinds of interpretation beyond the noble intent which the president has stated in an interview. So this one such interpretation. But if you look at it from the economic perspective, if only done properly and given an extended window for the currency swap, you say it's a very welcome thing. And just like the presidential candidate of the APC, I beg your pardon, I don't know why I make this occasional reference before they begin to mock me on social media. You understand? It's a common thing now. If you have this one slight glitch, people will take it to high heavens. Yeah. Now, so a lot of interpretation will be given. This is one such interpretation. And the fact that the time frame is very limited and in an election year, so these kind of interpretations are valid. But if you look at it very well, it's an economic process which has taken a political interpretation. Now, what I would say is that going back to what you asked originally, there is no rift, and I want to state for the 10th time, between the presidential candidate and the president of the country. There is no rift.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll take you back to the first question.
Yes.
The same President Buhari, in the middle of his first term, when they were talking about signing the electoral bill into law at that time, I remember vividly, he didn't sign it because he said the time was too short, and maybe because he felt that there could be problems, so he didn't. Also, towards the end of his first term, the prices of petrol products had gone up, and then it was almost, it had crashed. So it wasn't sustainable for us to pay so much for subsidy. So there was a lot of talk about removing subsidy at that time. The president at that time, looking at it that, okay, we're approaching another election year, I think maybe that affected his decision, and he didn't remove the subsidy, and up to now, the subsidy is still there. So looking at those two things, yet this same president approved this swap in an election year. Wouldn't say that people who think that there are other motives may have a point?
Well, it will appear so, that if given what you sketch, that there may be. But you see, the president has vowed to leave a legacy of credible election, beginning with the signing of the Electoral Act, which is welcome because, look, if you get the electoral process right, if you vote people on the basis of their manifesto, on the basis of their individual capacities, then nothing could be better for the nation, for the polity than that. But like you said, when you just suppose what he said previously and what's happening now, then you will say what has changed, really. And then, like I said, these are valid questions people are asking, they are raising. And unfortunately, some of us are not in a position to do that. But what we are in a position, to explain that, what we are in a position to explain is the position of the presidential candidate of the APC vis-a-vis the current policy, monetary swap, and then the process leading to a smooth handover of power by May 29.
Okay.
And if at all there is an in-house conflict, which I'm here to say again and again that, well, the perception, the optics, some people will read it, but as an insider, up to a point, I would say.
Well, Malam Ali, there may not be rift, between the president and the candidate of the APC. But the candidate of the APC doesn't necessarily appear to be the choice of the president as it is. This was a president who never really showed up for the campaigns of the APC until recently, when a lot of people were raising questions about whether or not the president is actually, in support of the candidate of the APC. So, yes, there may not be rift, but is the APC candidate actually the one that, the chosen one, or the person that the president really supports or endorsed?
Well, I think we have to understand one thing here. You see, let's go slightly back to the days of the APC presidential primaries. People make this allusion that the president actually was either aloof or not in support of, but the president never showed his hand. He provided a level playing field. And in a subsequent interview, when he was asked about the candidature of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we say he's going to win. Why? Because first, he's a well-known politician. He's a known bridge builder. I'm quoting some of the things he said. And he has been 2 times governor of Lagos State. The president said that. So how much of an endorsement would the presidential candidate require?
All right, Malam Ali, please hold your thoughts. We'll need to go for a very short break, and when we return, the show continues. Please stay.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak on Trust Television. We now have a chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, Umar Sani, joining us in the studio, and we've had Ali M. Ali, also the Deputy Director, Media and Publicity of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, talking about the campaigns so far. Thank you so much for joining, Madam Umar Sani. Thank you for joining the Daybreak show. Yeah, you're welcome. Well, before you came in, we were talking about the campaigns so far, so perhaps we should hear from your own side how the campaigns have been for the PDP. I mean, the lead story of the Daily Trust this morning says it all. We are still waiting for the G5 to, give us the name of their own presidential candidate, even though I know you don't belong to the G5. But again, your own side of the divide is optimistic that there will be some kind of reconciliation with the G5.
Well, I don't think there is any G5 at the moment, because so many factors have come in to give a clearer route as to where our campaign is heading to. Now, we had an unfortunate incident in Abia State. And Abia governor is one of the G5. And the governorship candidate of our party is late. He died before the election. So there will be another election. So G5 cannot manufacture a candidate. They have to go through the party. And going through the party means there must be negotiation, an agreement, and understanding. That is one way gone. So the G5 person there, Ekweazu, cannot be fighting the party because he needs the party at this point in time.
But we still have 4 people.
Yes, I'm still coming to all those things. Ogwuanyi is already, he cannot swim against the tide. Going by Enugu. Enugu has always and will continue to be PDP. So he can swim against the tide. The issues we have are in Oyo State because Oyo happens to be in the southwest where Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is from. So the likelihood that Oyo will go to APC is very high, judging by the fact that the state has always been oscillating between PDP and APC in terms of election. So that also is an issue. Now, Rivers State, where Nyesom Wike comes from, he has been campaigning for the PDP. So I don't know whether on the election day he'll go and tell the people, don't vote for the presidential, vote for senator, vote for House of Reps. I think that would be very confusing to even his own candidates that he placed. And don't forget, there are cases in court now. You know, the party has sacked the lawyers he recommended, and the party has put their own lawyers. So he has to negotiate with the party if his candidates will scale through. So in all this situation that we are having, Otom is the only person who is maybe recalcitrant and insist because they are from the same state with the national chairman. So in all this, we are very optimistic that those states, that we are having problems, they are ours, especially Enugu, Rivers, Benue, and Abia.
All right, Mr. Ali, apart from the fact that on the one hand, people talk about maybe the president and your candidate, there's also the issue of some persons in your party haven't really been seen actively participating in the campaign. For instance, we haven't seen the likes of former Minister Ogbonnaya. Amechi, we only saw him in Adamawa, and since then we haven't seen him. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is also one of them. Will you say the House is together as it concerns the campaigns?
Well, let me just say right away about the absence of the Vice President in the campaign trail, which has been explained in the past. The President explained why the Vice President, that both of them cannot, for issues, reason of running government. That of the Vice President has been settled. You just said a while ago about the presence of Amechi. At least he was seen. He was there in the flag up in Jos. He was also in Adamawa. And as for Ogbonnaya Onu, the fact that he's not seen around doesn't mean that there is war, there is fire on the mountain. No, it's all about optics, it's about the perception. But some people, like you said, rightly, these are valid. The perception here, the optics here show that perhaps there is a discord. But I want to assure even viewers now that there is none. Because of the nature of the presidential candidate, he's the one who consults all the time, talk widely, consults, speak all the time. He is the first person to extend the hand of friendship after he vanquished his opponent in the primaries. If you remember, he extended the hand of friendship, said, look, let's work together. I need you guys. I can't go it alone. Now, if some may, for whatever reason, they are not seen around, doesn't mean that backstage they're not with the presidential candidate. As opposed, unfortunately, to some other political parties where some battle lines have been drawn, and to this moment, notwithstanding the very rosy picture my friend here painted about the G5, we all know that the G5, they have drawn the battle line. Of course, there are pressures for some of them to actually jump ship midway, to come back into the fold. But That left to be seen.
But Malam Ali, how is it possible that one is in support of a particular candidate, but is not seen to be rallying or mobilizing support for that candidate? And we're not just talking about ordinary members of the APC. We're talking about people at the very high level. I mean, party leaders, talking about somebody like Chris Ngige, for instance, who is a minister under this government. You also talk about Emeka Nwajuba, who was a former minister under the same government. The APC candidate was in Anambra State yesterday, and they were not there. They were nowhere to be found. So how do you say that, you know, someone is actually in support of a person, but is not, you know, seen to be campaigning for that person?
But the case of Ngige, he has made his choice very, public, that he is keeping that to himself, which means, in other words, he's speaking through both sides of the mouth. In public, you say, look, he would make his own choice. So you may say that you have a valid point, raise a valid point. But I'm not saying that, what I'm saying is that some of the people you've not seen, like the case of Amechi, I've explained that, you understand. But the case of Chris Ngige, he has made it point blank that he will make, which in other words, because it's clear, you are in the party, if you are a party man, you know who is going to vote for, who you're going to support.
So you have people within your party who are possibly maybe working for other candidates in other parties.
Certainly, it's a possibility. There are people. It's something that the candidate of the APC has anticipated. He said it.
Are you not worried about that? Is the party not worried about that?
No, even in the best of times, there are some people who, when they defect, they are, one or two. In Adama, a former governor of the party defected to the PDP. And we say, well, good riddance. Why? Because he was a sitting governor, he lost the election. And then for the party primaries, for the 2022 election, he came a distant fifth. So we're talking of numbers. In politics, what you're looking at is numbers. You're not talking about big names. There's people who are big in names, but at the level of delivery, how much votes can they mobilize? They are, like we said, Abuja politicians who have access to public platforms, who maybe they could be, in a way, shapers of public opinion. But at crunch time, what matters is the numbers. And like they say in Washington, there are no kids, there are no public opinion molders, there are people, only voters. How much of that the visibility of your office, either as minister, head of predecessor, or governor, how much of it would translate into electoral assets? And this is the thing that counts in election, votes. We're not talking of high-sounding names. You understand what I'm saying? All right,
Mr. Malam Umar, when you were talking earlier, you mentioned Enugu has been traditionally PDP, and I do not know if the PDP still feels that way, really, because we do know that the obedient movement has eaten deep into that region, the south-south and the southeast. So is the PDP still very confident about that region?
You see, when you are talking about permutations and computations of the possibilities and probabilities, you do not bring an untested person and begin to say he has eaten into. How long has he eaten into? To where? You have never tested them. You only see them on the pages or on social media making noise. Have they been tested to know that they have eaten into our
They have said that they will remain on social media during the election.
Well, as so far, you see, campaigns is not about maybe the crowd you gather at a rally, but there are certain traditional states, and there are swing states, and there are states that even the APC itself will not even dream of winning, and there are states that the PDP does not even consider as they can do an upset. This is the Nigerian political terrain and political system from 1999
and you
to
think
now.
the PDP has not lost that in the southeastern part of the country?
No, I don't. There is no. In fact, there is nothing to show, either statistically or physically, that the PDP has lost its base. Nothing. So as far as I'm concerned, our party, will garner the 25% in 24 states and will have the overriding majority votes on that day. The APC are priding themselves that they don't have problem. But yesterday, the national chairman of the party was on an international media outlet, in his Hausa platform, where he was lambasting the presidential candidate for making a statement in Ogun State, and that statement was his own albatross. So that is also a problem. Another problem you are likely going to look at is the output of the presidential candidate himself.
All right, Mr. Umar, you talked about lambasting, so I'll come back to that. At the just concluded 20th Annual Trust Dialogue, there were a group of eminent panelists who talked about something. They said all the top front runners for the presidential election, they haven't really put together, they haven't really come up with something to show that they are ready for the job. In fact, one person described what we have seen so far as a beautiful academic piece. That yes, they have talked about some of the problems, but no clear way out of how to solve it. That what we see is lambasting, like you said. So I'd like you to talk to that, just the way I would like you to
you
talk.
see, when panelists sit down, they consider issues, on an intellectual and academic basis. They do not consider it having in mind the political angles to this type of discussion, because they are not politicians and they do not understand that certain elements come into play when it comes to campaigning. You do not go to campaigns and begin to talk only about issues, but you also have to lambast your opponent, so that the people who are listening will now know that the opponent has certain weaknesses.
What if the lambasting becomes more than the issues? Is that a problem?
Well, it is. You cannot say that throughout the lambasting became much more than the issues. Most of them are talking about what they want to do. For instance, when Tinubu was in Calabar, what he was talking about, that dollar was 200 naira. Now it's 800 naira. They didn't allow him they didn't school him well on what to do to be able to arrest such situations. There are issues. He's talking about issues. Although it is against his own party, but he's talking about issues. So most of these things are issues which are bedeviling Nigerians. Everybody is complaining about the rise in dollar. Everybody is complaining about the petroleum issues. Everybody is talking about the issue of the Naira exchange. So these are issues, and they are talking to issues. Even though they may not be talking to issues in the manner in which you or me would like to hear it, but at least they are talking to issues. So if we are talking about lambasting, from time to time, you go to a place and you lambast. Not all the time, and I have not seen it all the time.
Well, it certainly should have its limits, isn't it? So that we don't lose the focus of the discussions. But let me ask the question about the INEC now raising an alarm over the possibility of the fuel scarcity affecting the logistical arrangements for the 2023 general elections. How concerned are you about that?
Well, I just listened to, again, an international media. I don't want to advertise them here. This morning is a regular program from 6:30 to 7 o'clock, and the group managing director of NNPC, Mele Kyari, was talking about the recent fuel increase, and he said they have had a stakeholders meeting and they have agreed that, one, the prices of fuel will go back to its own official rate, and that there will be availability of fuel from now henceforth, and that there will be no fuel scarcity. And this is an agreement they have had with all the fuel stakeholders, and they have all agreed. And NNPC...
That's an assurance that Nigerians have always heard.
That is the only way. If the head of a particular section that is saddled with the responsibility of that comes out to say this, that is the only way we can say there are assurances. Otherwise, we cannot begin to question our own thoughts as to fuel scarcity. The INEC chairman is responsible for election. He can talk about the election, and he is talking about how fuel will affect his own election. This is the group managing director of NNPC saying there will be no problem of fuel. So where else do we want to hear from it?
All right. Well, maybe I should throw the same question to you, Madam Ali, as to how this could affect logistics.
Certainly it would, because the election process is about kinetics, it's about movement, it's about vehicular and human movement. But just before I go deep into that, let me just react to some of the things he said about the party chairman actually coming down hard on our presidential candidate only yesterday. And I will say that you must give it to the PDP when it comes to propaganda. They can take things out of context, out of time and place, resurrected and presented as fresh. The interview in question was something that had happened before the primaries of the APC. I beg your pardon, here I am again, making reference to the PDP as APC. Now, in the June primaries, when it was held, before it was held, when our candidate then, as an aspirant, went to Abeokuta, and he said expressed his reservation in a very strong manner. The APC candidate, who has, at that time, clearly preferred somebody else, if you remember, he came hard in a foreign broker international, actually the BBC House of Service, and excoriated the now presidential candidate of the day. But that hatchet has been buried a long time ago. They are now moving together. But the PDP...
Are they really moving together?
They are. At least you see the PDP chairman and the APC chairman. Oh, why am I referring to the PDP? I think you guys have done some voodoo. You've seen them together in public space, always campaigning. The party chairman has been all over the place with the presidential candidate. So that, let's keep that in perspective. I mean, give it proper understanding, because it has gone viral again. Out of context, out of time, but represented as fresh. Now, for the fuel shortage, any shortage of energy in the coming election will affect it. In the past, election was postponed on account of insecurity. Now, the insecurity has been downgraded to a large extent. But what we have now with the shortage of cash in the economy, especially for a country like ours, in the advanced climes, it takes years for currency swap. Even in the UK, for example, UK has over 350 banks. Now, as opposed to Nigeria's, how many banks do we have? 50? 70? I don't know. And in UK, it takes an average of 3 years to have complete currencies swap, side by side. But here we have a window of 3, 4, 5 months. I mean, look at the logistics, and they are not even in abundance. So that would affect election.
But apart from even affecting
so
the
fuel
election,
shortage, energy shortage would affect election. But thankfully, going by the latest utterances, but we're used to this. So many times the NNPC would assure us there will be fuel available. And you must give it also to the
Ali,
APC government.
The government is APC. Your party is APC. And it's seeking re-election.
Exactly.
Don't you think that this scarcity and all of these problems could affect the fortunes of your party?
It will. Certainly it will. And that's why we suspect there are fifth columnists. There are people working in government, people who have benefited from the magnanimity of the APC, who are also sabotaging it. The APC government has paid upfront, made provision for subsidy up to the end of May. So why is the scarcity? This is an APC government made provision. But you won't take it away. There are saboteurs in the system. And this is the thing, the issue, the fact that our presidential candidate is mentioning, is not shying away from that. Say, look, there are saboteurs who are hell-bent on eroding or affecting the fortunes of the APC. And I mean, it's so clear now. It's so clear. After his second in Abeokuta again, when he expressed that in strong terms, he is not the sort that will shy away because of his personal ambition to lead the country, shy away from, if you like, even saying what some other people will shy away from saying.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Perhaps, well, let me not say, but maybe these are signs that maybe the APC is losing it, at the final stage of the whole campaign.
Well, for people, incidentally, for anchors, for journalists who don't know how the other side works, yeah, the perception may be that. But you see, at the grass, at where it matters most, yeah, we are shaping public opinion. Certainly, the optics, you say perhaps the APC, some people are losing in the APC. But if you look at it really, on the contrary, I think it has ended the APC brownie points.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak. Madam Umar, we do not have much time, so I wouldn't risk another minute.
You have to risk another minute. Otherwise, I will accuse you of supporting your editor.
Okay, let me give you. Well, he's not my editor.
He used to be your editor.
But let me give you just that 1 minute then. Let me risk it.
Okay. Let me say that our party is prepared and is talking to issues, and we are going around the country and Nigerians are receiving us warmly. We believe that in 2023, or February 25th, Nigerians will come out en masse, and the PDP, which had held power for 16 years, will now be back, and that is to the glory of God and to the to the will of
we'll see
Nigerians.
how all that plays out. We have a 4-horse race this time around. The NNPP and the Labour Party are there. It's no longer the APC PDP kind of a battle. But thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak. We look forward to having you again.
Thank you.
That's our show for today. In case you have missed, you can always catch up across all our social media platforms and also on our YouTube live stream. I am Ayuba Ilya. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Join us same time, same station tomorrow. My name is Stella Iyaja, and do have a very pleasant day.